Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for July 29th, 2024. Well, as we're winding down this month, obviously we've got a lot of things that could create some volatility for us today. We've got the reports from NVIDIA yesterday, and we're looking a little bit lower after the bell yesterday on NVIDIA's report, but they are trying to push that back up here in the pre-market. Keeping in mind we have that possibility of resistance above and a little bit of downtrend on that chart. That being said, we have a busy day or a busy morning of economic data here this morning, as well as a pretty good list of potential notable earnings reports for today to inspire. Let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, if we take a look at Asian markets were mostly lower last night. The only index that managed to squeak out a gain was the HSI. That's the tech heavy sector there in Hong Kong, and it was up 0.53%. Shanghai fell pretty hard, down 0.5%. South Korea was down 1.2%, and Nikkei was down a very marginal 0.02%, and the Australian market was down 0.33%. If we take a quick trip over to Europe, we've got a very different picture. Europe is decidedly bullish this morning with the DAX up 0.59%, FTSE is climbing up 0.27%, and the CAC is up 0.67%. With a considerable number of economic reports that they're kind of reacting to over there this morning. If we were to take a look at the U.S. markets, well, interesting, last night after the bell, Dow futures were up pretty substantially after the NVIDIA report. But we saw the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ futures were in the red. Well, they've reversed that here this morning in the pre-market pump, and we are up substantially here in the diamonds, up 0.52%, S&P 500 up 0.21%, and the NASDAQ futures up 0.24%. If we take a look at oil this morning, oil is also trying to rebound up here just a little bit. As you can see, XLE, we've been moving down here in that move, but we got a little bit of oil numbers showing supply is a little bit weak here in the U.S., and so that's putting a little bit of a floor underneath these oil prices. Oil up 0.25% at 74.71 a barrel. Brent is up 0.0% at 78.72 a barrel, and natural gas is just slightly up here this morning after trying to rebound from maybe a double bottom here on UNG yesterday afternoon. If we take a look at those cryptos, my goodness, they had a really rough day yesterday, at one point in time being down well over $3,000 a coin. This morning they're trying to bounce back up. We're looking at Bitcoin up $450 a coin, and pretty much green across the board in those crypto markets. Gold also had a pretty rough day yesterday, pushing back, but began to rally toward the end of the day, and this morning we've got gold up pretty sharply. Right now up $18.70 an ounce on gold futures. Silver is also looking higher. Copper's just slightly lower, but platinum and palladium are reversing back up. So quite the volatility here that we see in the market. If we take a look at bond yields, our bond yields this morning, excuse me, our bond yields this morning are just slightly lower. Our 2-year bond is at 3.86%. The 10-year yield is at 3.83%, and the 30-year is at 4.12%. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Thursday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these markets and see if we can gain a little information about how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to shake off that bias. We want to be really focused in on what's going on this morning in these economic numbers, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But remember, look at the markets for what they are, not for what you want them to be. And what they are right now in the diamonds is very, very bullish. We've got a big upside trend going on in here. We've rested now 3 days, and you can see we've got some bullishness coming in to the Dow this morning. So a very good chance that we're going to open at a new record high this morning, and with a little bit of push we could have a new record high print in the diamonds. Blue sky above if those bulls find that inspiration, and right now every reason to believe they're going to. If we take a look at the bearish side of things, if the bears were to get inspired, well, a push back down to test this area of price support in the chart wouldn't be that big a surprise. You can see we've got a little bit of space out here before we get to trend. So a couple of days rest in there could still be possible. And if those bears were to push down below here, then we're breaking that trend in the chart, and we might catch a little price support right across there, across the top of this little area, and then right down here into this area of price support of the chart. Now, one thing we will want to keep in mind is that we are very separated away from our 50-day moving average, and we will run into a period of time here, probably in the not too distant future, where we're either going to consolidate more or we will get some kind of a pullback in the market. So you want to be considering that right now, because we are quite extended in the short term. If we take a look at our SPY, also in the quite a consolidation. Yesterday we had a pretty ugly sell-off in some of the big techs, and we're starting to look like a little bit of a double top pattern maybe coming into play. But you can see we're gapping up here this morning. All that NVIDIA energy coming into the market. So the first thing, if the bulls can find that inspiration, we need to first break that big black candle from yesterday, break that top, and then push up here to see if we can address this resistance in the chart. If we can get through that, then we have that potential that we could rally on up and challenge for an all-time high print in the SPY. And you know the market really wants to do that. In a pretty big way, they want to do that. If they can break through there, then blue sky above in the SPY. Of course, if those bears were to come up with any inspiration here today and we were to show some kind of a failure, well, maybe a pushback down here to test this price support of yesterday could seem to be a logical place to go, pushing down into here. If those bears push beyond that, well, that's where a little bit of worry will come into play, and we'll probably start moving on down progressively and possibly even coming into this gap for a potential fill if those bears were to really get going. If we were to pull back in here, remember, just coming back in here to test that 50-day moving average would not be odd. So, and would probably be a healthy thing for the market to do. I'm not sure we're going to get that, but healthy is not what our market does anymore. It's either zooming up or zooming down and not much else in between, and usually on tremendous hype and speculation. If we take a look at our QQQ had a rough day yesterday, dropping below our 50-day moving average here in the chart. And if we rally back, and you can see we're gapping up this morning trying to take some of that back, rallying back up into this area, we'll be testing that 50-day moving average, price resistance, and this potential upside trend here in the chart. So we'll want to watch these areas in here carefully. If we can push on through the high of yesterday, push on up, then we'll start looking at some of these areas right in here to see if we can drive those QQQs back up. We still run that potential that this could be a lower high in the QQQ if those bears were to come into play. And if those bears do come into play, well, you can see it pretty easily. A little retest of this area here would be possible. We have already slipped back and almost completely filled that gap here in the market. So breaking back down below there, we'd probably raise a little fear in the market, and we might start coming down progressively through these areas of the chart if those bears were to really engage. If we take a look at our IWM, our Russell, just a light pullback over the last 3 days. As a matter of fact, we're still holding predominantly that trend here to the upside. So if the bulls can find inspiration here today, maybe we can push on through and see if we can stretch on up and fill this little gap that's in here, and then back up here to see if we can test this recent high, and then we'd start pushing up here toward these levels in the chart. If the bears, however, were to find inspiration in the data today, watch that carefully. We could break back down below there, coming back down into these areas of price support in the chart. Could be likely, and remember, just a retest of that 50-day moving average wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing here for the market. Let's take a look at our VIX here this morning. Our VIX had a little bit of a rally in it yesterday with a little fear coming up, but it wasn't significant. You know, we rallied up in here, we testing this resistance here in the chart, and if we look back across this whole downtrend, we just kind of came back up and tested that resistance area there as well to see if we could break back through. This morning, the bullishness, we're likely to see this pulling back pretty sharply. So if the bulls find inspiration here, we would look for a retest of this area of price support today and possibly even a push down into here. Now, if we start breaking below there, we're going to start reaching back down here toward these areas of complacency in the market, and that does raise some concern for me when we become so complacent, but we'll be watching that carefully. If the bears were to find some kind of inspiration, it's certainly possible in the data that we have coming today, then a break above this area would be a concern. We'll want to be watching, because then we could fill that gap right in here and maybe start pushing on up to the higher levels of resistance here in the VIX. So keep an eye on that today. If we take a look at our T20s, our T21-22 indicator, well, yesterday at the close, we were pushing that back down. So we've got a room here this morning for that move back up, and the gap up that we're likely to see in the diamonds and everything else is probably going to push us right back up here into that bearish reversal zone. As I've said before, here in T21-22, we can linger in this top area, but we can only linger there for so long. You can see this one was a very long linger up here where we bounced around in here, and then we eventually sell off. So as we continue this stretch in our indexes and we continue to linger up here, we're getting closer and closer and closer to a potential pullback in the market. So as we gap up in here this morning, and we'll likely be pretty much pegged out here this morning with the bullishness that I'm seeing in the futures, then we do have to watch for that potential. If the bears, however, were to find inspiration in the data today, well, we've certainly got more downside room in that chart, and it is possible that these futures could reverse before the market opens. So watch carefully for both of those potentials. If we take a look at our T2108, well, T2108 pulled back yesterday. This is the percentage of stocks above their 40-day. 58, almost 59% of the stocks holding above their 40-day. looking good. The bulls are definitely in control here. We want to remember that as we push up here into the mid 70s area, we're going to run into an extreme overbought condition for the market. So we've got room to go. We've also got some resistance up here to deal with in that chart to pay attention to. And if the bears were to come in with any kind of inspiration today, we've got some good areas of price support to hold us. Our T2107, very much the same. Pulled back yesterday, but bulls are definitely in control. Trend right now is in control. We still have that all that corporate buyback going on in the market, and we just heard, Nvidia authorizing $50 billion in buyback. So when they can't get the market inspired on earnings, we just buy back shares from the company, pushing these indexes higher. So watch that carefully here. If we can push on up, remember up here in the mid 65s, we start running into an extreme overbought condition. But the percentage of stocks above our 200-day, this is still very, very bullish, and every reason to believe that they can hold that. Our T2101 pulled back yesterday. As you might expect, we were resting in the market waiting for the Nvidia report. We had a little bit of breadth pullback, but the way we're looking this morning, that breadth may be coming right back in, and we may be shoving hard on our breadth here today in those corporate buybacks. You will want to keep in mind that as we push up here, we're getting into a very lofty area of corporate buyback activity, and that possibility of a pullback does start to come into potential focus. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, we've got a few things that we want to be paying attention to this morning. Clearly, we've got a lot of data coming our way. First thing this morning, we're going to get the GDP numbers. And if you take a look at those, right now they're just kind of punting. They're not really sure what's going to happen, so they're leaving them flat from last month in those consensus estimates. So be prepared for that. Prior to the open today, we're also going to get international trading goods, and consensus is suggesting that international trading goods is going to go into a bigger deficit of 98 billion. So watch carefully for that possibility today. And then, of course, jobless claims. And they're expecting 230,000 in the jobless claims, a little bit lighter than last time. We should be wary of the fact that we're seeing all of these retailers, guiding lower, things like that. We're seeing factory activity, manufacturing activity really slowing. That there may be a time here before too long that we start to see this number come up. Of course, I'm not sure how the market would react to that. If that number comes up, that would help support the idea of a rate cut. And boy, we're all about that rate cut. But it could also show us some trouble with the economy, and it could get a little bit of bearish activity if that were to occur. Not suggesting that's going to happen, but be watching that closely on that jobless claim. We're also going to get corporate profits here before the bell. We're going to get retail inventories before the bell as well, and wholesale inventories. So a very busy morning here just before we open up. After that, we're going to get pending home sales, and our pending home sales are looking at a decline to 1.1% from 4.6. So that could have a negative impact on the market, showing that market slowing down, consumer being a little bit stressed. And then beyond that, we've got some bond auctions, we've got Bostic speaking, and a Fed balance sheet at the end of the day. Remember, as we progress into Friday, we could see choppy price action this afternoon, particularly if we gap up and hold, and all of the price movement happening in the overnight session. We could see a little choppy session here after all of this data comes in, as we wait for that personal incomes and outlays. Remember, this is the Fed's favorite number. We'll take a look at that tomorrow. We've also got Chicago PMI in there and a consumer sentiment report along with Baker Hughes and farm prices. So keep an eye on that for tomorrow. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. In our earnings calendar, we do have quite a few earnings. I'll run through them really quick this morning. We've got FLWS reporting this morning, SEO. We've got Best Buy reporting. Oh, nice pop there on Best Buy. We've got Brown-Forman that will be reporting this morning. Burlington will be in there today. We're going to hear from Dollar General. We've got GMS reporting, and MBUU will be in there. We've got MCFT, OLLI, PLAB, RY, and TITN. Now, what we have seen is we're running through some of these. Obviously, some of those retail numbers are not looking good on those reports. And again, it's showing us that concern in the consumer. Market's not all about AI, although we have really made it all about AI here recently. Now, if we take a look at the afternoon reports, we've got some nice notables here. ADSK, Autodesk, will be reporting. We're going to hear from Dell, DOMO, ESTC. We've got the Gap stores in there. We've got HCP reporting. Lululemon will be in there. Marvel and MDB for this afternoon are those notable reports. How about we take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today? But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful, helpful to your day, if you could do me that favor, click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who takes the time to do that. Those folks that share these videos out on your social media feed just by clicking that link and posting it out there. Thank you so much. That helps us a lot. And also, for those of you that continue to support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link just below the title of the video, you guys are truly awesome. Thank you so much. Let's take a look at some of these stocks setting up. Remember, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Make sure you're following your guidance, your rules, your risk tolerance. Never ever blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. Well, first off, I placed a new alert here on PepsiCo yesterday. Now, PepsiCo pulling back into this trend, and I'm watching for that opportunity if we can get a little bit of bullish action to push this up here in the chart. And I think there's pretty good reason that that could happen. We continue to see Coca-Cola stretching to the upside, looking very bullish. You guys know I've been talking about Coke for quite a while in this run from all the way down here, looking really good in some of these defensive sector stocks. Take a look at Campbell's Soup. Campbell's Soup, well, having a little bit of trouble here this morning, but it was holding this pattern in here yesterday. Watch that carefully. If it can recover in here, that push to the upside might be of interest in there to watch carefully for. We take a look at AG. I put an alert here on AG, and it did fail yesterday, pulling back, which that's why I place an alert, so I'm not chasing those moves. But what we're seeing here in gold this morning and silver is they are bouncing back up. So if it recovers right up into this area, I would keep a close eye on that. And speaking of those areas, if you take a look at GLD, GLD could easily, without too much trouble, push on through and make new record highs here in the chart. A little bit of a morning star pattern in this choppy consolidation in here, so watch that carefully. It's really going to depend on how the US dollar responds. You can see we're a little bit weaker here today, so watch that carefully, and we're rallying up to a downtrend, and this sets up, I think, is a possible short. So watch that carefully here on UUP, US dollar continuing to show quite a bit of weakness. And as we lower rates, we would expect that to continue here in the market. So keep an eye on UUP. At the same time, as those bond yields pull back, we would expect to see TLT or any of these bond funds move higher. TLT a little bit higher here this morning, still in a consolidation, and I'm really glad it's resting here for a while. All of this race up and race down stuff has created just these very uncertain conditions in the market. Nice little consolidating pattern would make some sense in here. So keep an eye on TLT. You could look at BND. BND breaking through this resistance up here, holding into that chart pattern. That's looking pretty darn bullish there. Any pullback in those bond yields, and I would look for that opportunity that could continue to push on through in the market. So watch those closely. Other places, take a look at Levi Strauss. Levi Strauss making that pop yesterday. I had that alert set here on Levi's, trying to push on up, and you can see that could begin the upside trend. Finally, the first higher low coming into play. And you'll notice in here, if we can break through this resistance right in there on the chart, then we have that potential that we could push right up and fill this gap here in Levi Strauss. Keep an eye on that. Got some interest in potentially holding something like that. A big winner yesterday, and actually ended up pulling back by the end of the day, but Chewy, I picked up some Chewy yesterday, and it pushed up, came almost all the way back, and then rallied once again at the end of the day. So watch that carefully as we deal with this resistance, trying to gap up here in the pre-market. Watch that carefully. If it breaks through this resistance, then I think there's some nice upside potential. Remember, breaking this major downtrend here in the chart, and we are starting to resume that upside trend here. So watch that closely in Chewy. Pretty nice chart. Caterpillar continues to hold in a very bullish pattern here. We're seeing quite a bit of energy flowing into the Dow, and CAT is going to be helpful for that. If that can hold this support, I would look for that next opportunity, and you can just take that alert and place it right up here and wait for that in Caterpillar trying to come around. Also, Cummins, this resting pullback here in Cummins after that break of this alert, coming back toward the trend. If it rests here a little bit more, no problem. As long as it doesn't break back down, look for that next opportunity in that to the upside. Watch that closely. Spotify, been really struggling here. It did break the alert in that chart. We're struggling in this area here with the tech sell-off yesterday. It kind of drew down, but you can see this morning trying to come right back. If you watch right in here, that opportunity that could push right on through. So keep a close eye on that. Other charts out there I think that are worth paying attention to. TAP could be setting up here, still trying to dance around this resistance in the chart, but we can clearly see where the sellers are right now, and we can, buyers are, and we can clearly see where the sellers are in that chart. So keep an eye on that. If this can get some kind of energy to push through, well, hey, we could probably get a pile on and push that right on through to the upside. I'd watch that carefully. Costco, after breaking through this major resistance, making an all-time high in the market, came back pretty hard yesterday, but you can see we're already in the pre-market trying to show that we're willing to hold on in here. So if this can rest after breaking through that resistance in the chart, look for that next opportunity there for that upside move as well. IBM continuing to show lots of strength. Breaking through this resistance, we pulled back a little bit yesterday. Again, here in the pre-market, showing that energy to the upside. Where I originally alerted on this has just been a beautiful upside move, and I think this pattern may continue right on up. If we go out here to a weekly chart, you can see we could see levels up here around 215 possible to test those all-time highs. So still quite a few points, 15 points potential to the upside there on IBM, worth keeping a close eye on. Mickey D's, if we look at that, Mickey D's, nice little resting pattern, had a little pullback in there yesterday, coming back out to trend, watching for that next opportunity that Mickey D's could push right on through to the upside, worth keeping a close eye on. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here today. I do truly appreciate it. I'll see you right back here bright and early Friday morning, and I wish you all the very, very best today. Take care.